Once upon a time, there was a woman who planned her birthday book haul. Past birthday book hauls had been times of purchasing unknown books with wanton abandon. She knew she wanted something different. So in early January, in the midst of colds and storms, she opened a document on her computer and titled it Birthday Book Haul Possibilities. She set for herself parameters. Parameter 1, any book that comes into my house as a birthday book haul book must either be from a Little Free Library, a library book sale, Better World Books, or Book Outlet. No brand new books for this birthday book haul. Number 2, it has to have been on the birthday book haul possibilities list for 3 months or more before you will bring it into this house. Number 3, each birthday book haul book must show the signs that it is rereadable. Will it be rich storytelling that goes far beyond the surface level of beginning, middle, and end? With these parameters in mind, this woman set about on a quest, a year-long quest, to create for herself the perfect birthday book haul. This, my friends, is that book haul. This is my perfect birthday book haul. Hello, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, that may have been a little bit of a weird introduction. But I wanted to get the information to you without giving you a super big list. My name is Jenna. This is Chicky Bean Loves Books. I always forget to introduce myself. Always. I just assume we've known each other for years. It feels that way. Normally I film with my bookshelves behind me. Always my puppy, Lola, who's trying to get into my coffee cup right now. Hello, Lola. Hello. Always, Lola makes multiple appearances. I'm filming from this angle today because A, my living room is clean, which never happens, and B, the tree is so pretty, and C, I want to be able to see Lola and the tree at the same time while I film this. While she's being a very good girl, she does sometimes get a little bit excited about the tinsel, about the garland, the glittery garland. So, and she tries to pull it off, and it's layered further back than the first layer, and so if she tries to pull that off, the whole tree is going to unravel. She does not seem interested in that at the moment, though. So, are you going to sit down? Oh, good girl. What a good girl. She's sitting on the bench. What a good girl. Yes. Oh, such a good girl. Okay, let's do a birthday book haul. Hi. You really want to be in this one, don't you? Yeah, you want to be a star. You want to be a star. You want to give me kisses. Give me birthday kisses. Thanks, love bug. You petting me? You giving me pets? Thank you. I love you too so much. Okay, thank you. I don't want kisses right now, though. I really don't want kisses right now. Thank you, though. Okay. Let's get started. First off, I do plan on reading certain things every month in the year 2024. Some examples will be like, I'm gonna reread all of my standalone Sophie Kinsella's, one a month. I'm going to do Bean's Big Book Bash, one book a month. There's a separate video about that, which I'm sure you've already seen, actually. There's going to be, I'm gonna alternate between short stories by Borgia and short stories by Faulkner. I have two big complete works, and I'll pivot back and forth each month, reading a section of those short stories. I am going to do a reread of a recent favorite. That doesn't mean the book is recent. That means my introduction to it is fairly recent. And in addition to that, each month I want to read a classic. These are classics. These would have been classics when the classics that first popped into your mind when I said classics were new. So I have read so much Victorian and Regency era literature. I have read so much early modern literature. I have read next to nothing of ancient literature. Myths, all of that fun stuff. Have not read it. Not gonna do very many myths, if myths at all, but that doesn't limit what I can read. Now I wanna do one a month and I've only got 10 here. I'm still looking for 2 possibilities. I do have some on my birthday book haul list and they just haven't come available to me through one of the modes that I've decided I can bring my birthday books in with, but I'm also really open to some suggestions. So if you have any great ideas after you see the kinds of things that I'm picking, I just moved over so you could see Lola better. If you have any great ideas after you see the kinds of books that I'm picking for my birthday book haul, then please put them in the comments because I would love to know what I don't know. And there's a lot that I don't know. So first of all, I read an arc that had, I think, 32 or more chapters devoted specifically to different people who express a great deal of faith in some way, shape, or form. These were not all from the same religion. They were not all from the same time period. They did not express faith in the same way, but they all expressed some form of faith. And I became completely enthralled by one woman named Margery Kempe. One of my birthday book haul books is The Book of Margery Kempe, and this is a new translation by Anthony Bell. The book was written somewhere between 1436 and 1438. It's the extraordinary account of a medieval wife, mother, and mystic, known as the earliest autobiography written in the English language. That's as far as I'll go. I also really want to read The Letters of Abelard and Heloise. This is maybe better known than the Book of Margery Kempe. I don't actually know the story. I know these 2 names, but I don't know this story. So if you know, please don't spoil. It says the story of a relationship between Abelard and Heloise is one of the world's most celebrated and tragic love affairs. It is told through the letters of Peter Abelard, a French philosopher and one of the greatest logicians of the 12th century, and his gifted pupil Heloise. So I'll stop there. I want to read that. I want to read the Iliad. I did not know it was this long. I've actually listened to the Iliad and A Great Courses course on the Iliad several years ago, but I have never actually held it in my hands and read it. So I want to do that with my own 2 little eyes. And so I'm gonna read the Iliad by Homer, and if you're gonna read the Iliad, you might as well read the Odyssey. So I'm also gonna read the Odyssey by Homer, which I have not read before. I'm going to read The Voyage of Argo by Apollonius of Rhodes. So this one says, this is the only full account that has come down to us of Jason's voyage in quest of the Golden Fleece. Okay, so it's the story of Jason and the Golden Fleece. I am going to read Parzival by Wolfram von Eisenbach. Parzival, I love that. I love this. This one says, composed in the early 13th century, Wolfram von Eisenbach's Parzival is the recreation and completion of the story left unfinished by its initiator, Chrétien de Troyes. It follows Parzival from his boyhood and his career as a knight in the court of King Arthur to his ultimate achievement as king of the Temple of the Grail, which Wolfram describes as a life-giving stone. As a knight serving the German nobility in the imperial Hohenstaufen period, the author was uniquely placed to describe the zest and color of his hero's world. So we'll pause there. We've got a King Arthur narrative that leads us to the Holy Grail. I'm going to read Gilgamesh. Never read Gilgamesh. It says that Gilgamesh is considered one of the masterpieces of world literature, but until now there has not been a version that is a superlative literary text in its own right until this one that I hold in my hands. I'm going to read The Lays of Marie de France. So this is Marie de France, late 12th century, is the earliest known French woman poet, and her lays, which are stories in verse based on Breton tales of chivalry and romance, are among the finest of the genre. So I'll read those. This is very short. I'm going to read Virgil's, now, am I saying this correctly? Aeneid? I think I am, but I may not be. The Aeneid. After a century of civil strife in Roman Italy, Virgil wrote the Aeneid to honor the Emperor Augustus by praising Aeneas, Augustus's legendary ancestor. As a patriotic epic imitating Homer, the Aeneid also set out to provide Rome with a literature equal to that of Greece. So it's the clapback of the Iliad and the Odyssey. And then I know I said I was not gonna do anything Victorian, but I lied. I've never read this, and I'm gonna read Aurora Lee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. To be honest, the only Barrett Browning I've ever read is Sonnets to the Portuguese. It's the foremost example of the mid-19th century poem of contemporary life. Sounds good to me. So if you are curious, it is a novel in verse. And my copy, I got it from Better World Books, and it came with such what looked to be insightful annotations. I'm very excited to see what the person who annotated it before I got my hands on it had to say about it. But it's not all going to be classics around here. I also want to read some mysteries this year. I'm in the mood for some mysteries. I've picked up, some of these are standalones and some of these are first in series, and I have been really researching all year series that I think I might like to pick up in 2024. So some of these are a little bit of a chance as far as rereadability factor, but I do think they all have more than just plain old mystery to them to keep me coming back and maybe even to continue on with series. So here is first in series. This is Marian Lane and the Midnight Murder. This has been on my radar for a few years now, and I just haven't picked it up. So this is London, 1958. Hidden deep beneath the city's streets lies the world of Miss Brickett's, a secret detective agency. From traversing deceptive escape rooms to engineering almost magical mechanical gadgets, apprentice detectives at Miss Brickett's undergo rigorous training to equip them with the skills they need to solve the mysteries that confound London's police force. But nothing can prepare 23-year-old apprentice Marian Lane for what happens when her mentor Frank is arrested on suspicion of murder and tasks Marian with clearing his name and saving his life. I read this one. My copy is a little bit disheveled. I read this one. I know I love this author. Read this one a couple of years ago when it first came out, but I listened to it on audio and I didn't own a copy, and I'd like to reread it. And that is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I'm not gonna read the synopsis of that one. I have, this one may be a little bit controversial. I got this in a little free library. I'm very excited about it. When you were growing up, did your grandma have those Reader's Digest condensed version omnibuses of different stories? My grandma did. And this is one of them. It doesn't have its cover, but it's in perfect condition. And this one is a Gothic treasure trove. So it's got stuff from authors like Phyllis A. Whitney, Victoria Holt, Dorothy Eden, Jessica North, and it's taken some of their novels and condensed them into shorter versions. Now, that's why I think it's controversial. I think some of you are going to be like, you can't read a condensed version. I can read whatever I want. It's also got these beautiful illustrations for each story. Some of the illustrations are super creepy, and some of them are just gorgeous. Let me find some more. So the ones that are popping up most easily are the ones that accompany the beginning of each story, but there are illustrations throughout. So I'm just very excited about picking that up at some point. I also have the start of 2 YA series by the same author, different series. I've actually read both of these, like, I don't know, almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And I don't really remember them, but I do remember enjoying them, and I never picked up the next in series. So I thought these might be contenders for series that I might enjoy, since I have also recently enjoyed The Witch Hunt, or The Witch Haven. I said The Witch Hunt because I have it sitting in front of me. The Witch Haven by Sasha Payton Smith. So these, I think, give me similar vibes, and I'm hoping that I will also enjoy reading them as a series next year. So that is The Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray and The Diviners by Libba Bray. So I picked up both of these. I read a couple of Anya Seton's this year and really loved them. This year I got really into Mary Stewart and Anya Seton, and so I was looking for more books in that vein. So I picked up The Hearth and the Eagle. I'm still trying to get the Better World Books sticker off of it. Better World Books, if you're watching, please make your sticker glue less adhesive. But here we go. We've got The Hearth and the Eagle by Anya Seton. And this one says, In the mid-1940s, the great historical novelist Anya Seton embarked on a fervent search for her forebears that led her to Marblehead, Massachusetts, a sea-griddled town of rocks and winding lanes and clustered old houses. There she found not only an ancestor, but also the setting for this, her fourth novel. It is not only the story of Marblehead from its earliest settlement to the present, and of a family who settled and stayed there in the Hearth and Eagle Inn, it is also the story of Hesper Honeywood, a passionate young woman whose long and dramatic life, full of triumph and tragedy, contained the history of both. In one of her most ambitious novels, Anya Seton has created one of her most memorable heroines and one of her most varied tales. I saw this in a little free library and got very excited. I don't know if you enjoy having these kinds of really old Gothic novels that have that very distinctive smell, but I saw this and I grabbed it. This is Dorothy Eden's An Afternoon Walk. Look how eerie that cover is. It had a sticker on it. I didn't tear it off, someone did, and it took some of the cover with it. How sad. It's so fun. This particular edition is from 1972, so it's older than me. This is super fun. It says, the shrilling ring of the phone shattered the peaceful sun-drenched afternoon. The voice was the voice of a stranger. Am I speaking to Mrs. Simpson? Yes, said Ella tensely. I am Mrs. Simpson. The very lady I want. Just a word of advice, love. Drive carefully. The caller hung up abruptly. Not that Ella would have wanted to talk to him. She hated the sound of his voice, very vulgar, but why was he calling her all the time, warning her about lots of things, even about her small daughter, Kitty? Do you know where Kitty is? The voice threatened. Her husband didn't believe a word of it, told her she was imagining things, that she was loony. He also didn't believe about the old, empty house she and Kitty had stumbled upon a few afternoons ago, but she had seen the house, and so had Kitty, and now that she thought about it, she realized that all her troubles had begun with the visit to that house. There was something dark and evil about the place, something terrible, but what? And who would believe her, even if she did find out? Very excited to read that. Then I picked up Alexandra Rafe. I've never read Alexandra Rafe before. This is Wild Highland Home, but it is blurbed by Rosamund Pilcher, who I've also fallen in love with. And it is also, it's blurbed, sorry. Here it is. It's blurbed by Rosamund Pilcher, who I have fallen in love with. It says it's in the heartwarming tradition of Rosamund Pilcher, and it's blurbed by Mary Stewart. So how could I not pick this up? It says, when Claire Somerville gives up her fast life in London to buy the Laroche, an isolated cottage without any modern conveniences, no one thinks she will stay. But for Claire, moving near a remote Scottish loch is an essential part of the inner journey she must take to heal herself and put her tragic past behind her. Soon Claire finds herself changing, both without and within. She discovers contentment in the friendships with her colorful new neighbors, whose unexpected acts of kindness take her by surprise. One is Donald McCrae, a man of quiet strength and inner conflicts of his own. So we'll stop there. This, if it is blurbed by both Mary Stewart and Rosamund Pilcher, it's coming into my house, and it probably has high rereadability possibility. This is the beginning of a series that I have been curious about for a long time. I didn't know if I wanted to read it. I tend to really not like books with animals that talk, but this year I read and absolutely loved, in fact, it will be on my favorite reads of the year, Wildwood, by Malloy. What's his first name? I can't remember, but I absolutely loved it. It is one of my favorite books of the year. And so I decided to give a few books that have been on my radar for a while a try that have talking animals, and I think I'm going to really enjoy this. When it arrived, I did have a good look at the first chapter, and I think I'm going to really enjoy this and continue with the series. So that is The Tale of Hilltop Farm, The Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter by Susan Wittig Albert. I've never read anything by Susan Wittig Albert. I've seen that name a lot. I was able through Better World Books to get my hands on a used library copy. You can see that it is an old library copy that was released in 2004. So it's made its way around, and it ended up at Better World Books and in my hands. And I think that this copy, this hardback copy, is so nice. It has like raised bumpy lettering, and the font feels like the original font on the Peter Rabbit books. But in case you're not familiar, I think everyone is, but in case you're not familiar, it says in 1905 England, it was most unusual, if not outright scandalous, for an unmarried woman to buy and run a farm. But that's exactly what Beatrix Potter sets out to do when she purchases Hilltop Farm in the Lake District hamlet of Near Sawrey. That's a very weird word to say. Beatrix, trying to recover from her sorrow at the death of her fiancé, believes that the countryside will have a healing effect, while providing a quiet place for her to work on her sketches and stories for children. But when one of the villagers dies unexpectedly with allegations of foul play, Sawrey turns out to be anything but quiet. I am not only going to be reading mysteries and classics, I've also made a distinct effort to get some contemporary fiction on my list. A series I'm going to continue reading throughout the year is the Hope Harbor series by Irene Hannon. So I picked up the next book in that series. Again, Better World Books, if you can hear me, make your stickers less adhesive. Thank you. This is the next one, See Rose Lane. I picked up from Book Outlet a copy of Eleanor Caton's Birnam Wood. A, Birnam Wood, Macbeth vibes. B, Eleanor Caton wrote my favorite book of the year from 2020. It's not a book from 2020, but I read it in 2020, which was The Luminaries, and that book blew me away. So I am excited to give this one a try. This one is about like tree conservation and something else, I'm not sure. It says Birnam Wood is on the move. A landslide has closed the Korowai Pass on New Zealand's South Island, cutting off the town of Thorndyke and leaving a sizable farm abandoned. The disaster presents an opportunity for Birnam Wood, an undeclared, unregulated, sometimes criminal, sometimes philanthropic guerrilla gardening collective that plants crops wherever no one will notice. For years, the group has struggled to break even. To occupy the farm at Thorndyke would mean a shot at solvency at last. But the enigmatic American billionaire Robert Lemoine also has an interest in the place. He has snatched it up to build his end times bunker, or so he tells Burnham's founder, Mira, when he catches her on the property. He's intrigued by Mira and by Birnam Wood. Although they're poles apart politically, it seems Lemoine and the group might have enemies in common. But can Burnham trust him? And as their ideals and ideologies are tested, can they trust each other? A gripping psychological thriller from the Booker Prize-winning author of The Luminaries. Eleanor Caton's Birnam Wood is Shakespearean in its drama, Austinian in its wit, and like both influences, fascinated by what makes us who we are. I picked up a couple, I'll just show you one, but I picked up a couple of the next books in Evergreen, in Haven Point, in the Haven Point series by Ryan Thane. This one is Evergreen Springs. I have a couple of more. They're very inexpensive on Better World Books, and I just grabbed, I think, like 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think I grabbed the next so that I'd have an even 5. That should get me through a few months if I read one every single month. I picked up some contemporaries. Oh, I picked up Billy and Me by Giovanna Fletcher. I think this is going to be a heart-rending story. It says that Sophie May has a secret, one that she successfully kept for years. It means that she's had to give up her dreams of going to university and traveling the world to stay in her little village, living with her mom and working in the local tea shop. But then she meets the gorgeous Billy, an actor with ambitions to make it to the top, and when they fall in love, Sophie is whisked away from the comfort of her life into Billy's glamorous but ruthless world. Their relationship throws Sophie right into the spotlight after years of shying away from attention. Can she handle the constant scrutiny that comes with being with Billy? And most of all, is she ready for her secret heartbreak to be discovered and shared with the nation? Weather Girl. This one says, Ari Abrams has always been fascinated by the weather, and she loves almost everything about her job as a TV meteorologist. Her boss, legendary Seattle weatherwoman Torrance Hale, is too distracted by her tempestuous relationship with her ex-husband, the station's news director, to give Ari the mentorship she wants. Ari, who runs on sunshine and optimism, is at her wit's end. The only person who seems to understand how she feels is the sweet but reserved sports reporter Russell Berenger. The Impulse Purchase by Veronica Henry says it's joyful and exquisite. Cherry, Maggie, and Rose are mother daughter and granddaughter, each with their own hopes, dreams, and even sorrows. They have always been close, so when Cherry buys a gorgeous rundown pub in the village she grew up in, it soon becomes a family affair. All three women uproot themselves and move to Rushbrook, deep in the heart of Somerset, to take over the Swan and restore it to its former glory. Cherry is at the helm, Maggie is in charge of the kitchen, and Rose tends the picturesque garden that leads down to the river. Before long, the locals are delighted to find the beating heart of the village is back, bringing all kinds of surprises through the door. Jill Manziel. Welcome to Jill Manziel's Wonderful World. An unexpected reunion between two former lovers changes both their families forever. Old friendships fade and new ones blossom as neighbors begin to see one another in a new light. A young woman finally asks for what she really wants, and a young man atones for his bad behavior, and both find that courage brings its own rewards, plus surprises, companionship, cross wires, self-discovery, and a story that will leave you completely satisfied and begging for more. This cover is so fun. Bear With Me by Katie Shepherd. This one says, love makes life a little wilder in this rom-com by debut author Katie Shepherd. After a panic attack puts him in the hospital, charity executive Tegan Van Zigel, what kind of name is that? Tegan Van Zigel is dragged by his sister to a wilderness therapy retreat in Montana. Lost in the woods while absconding from mid-afternoon meditation, Tegan is nearly eaten by a bear before his rescue by a furious angel in muddy hiking boots, the program's handywoman, Darcy Albano, who was mostly worried for the bear. Lucy Checks In by D. Ernst. Lucy Giannetti needs a fresh start. Once the manager of a glamorous New York City hotel and intimately involved with the hotel's owner, Lucy had her entire future planned out. But when the owner disappears, taking millions of dollars with him, Lucy's life, as she knows it, falls apart. 2 years later, unemployed and just shy of 50, Lucy takes a job in Rennes, France, to manage the Hotel Paradise. She pictures fur quilts and extravagant chandeliers, but what she finds is wildly different. Lucy is now in charge of turning the rundown but charming hotel into a bustling tourist attraction. Between painting rooms, furnishing the renovated interior, and getting to know Bing, an irritatingly attractive artist, Lucy finds an unexpected home. But can she succeed in bringing the Hotel Paradise to its former glory? Witty and heartfelt, Lucy Checks In is an inspiring and feel-good novel about reclaiming your life, finding love, and creating a home in places you never imagined. Ruby Spencer's Whiskey Year. The man bun on that is so cringe, but it's okay. It's about the inside, right? So it says Ruby Spencer is spending 1 year living in a small cottage in a tiny town in the Scottish Highlands for 3 reasons: to write a best-selling cookbook, to drink a barrel full of whiskey, and to figure out what comes next. It's hard to know what to expect after an impulse decision based on a map of Scotland in her Manhattan apartment, but she knows it's high time she had an adventure. The moment she sets foot in Thistlecross, the verdant scenery, cozy cottages, and struggling local pubs steal her heart. Between designing pop-up suppers and conversing with the colorful locals, Ruby starts to see a future that stretches beyond her year of adventure. It doesn't hurt that Brochan, B-R-O-C-H-A-N, Brochan, the ruggedly handsome local handyman, keeps coming around to repair things at her cottage. As Ruby grows closer to him and the tightly held traditions of the charming village, she discovers secret plans to turn her beloved pub into an American chain restaurant. Faced with an impossible choice, Ruby must decide between love, loyalty, and the Highland way of life. So we've got The Boy with the Bookstore by Sarah Echavare Smith. I'm not sure how to say that name. It's pretty. Max Boyson looks good from a distance, but up close and personal, the tattooed Joelle Prima has been crushing on for the past year and a half has turned into a prime example of why you shouldn't judge a book by his delectable cover. When she first learned about the massive renovation to the building they share, Joelle imagined that temporarily combining her Filipino bakery with Max's neighboring bookstore would be the perfect opening chapter to their happily ever after. In her fantasy, they fed each other bibinka and pandesal while discussing Jane Austen and cooing over her pet hamster Pumpkin. The reality, however, is quite different. Her gallant prince turns out to be a stubborn toad who snaps at her in front of customers, dries his wet clothes in her oven, and helps himself to the yummy pastries in her display case without asking. Not That Kind of Ever After by Lucy Adams. I'll just do a little close-up there on the cover because I like how the little crown is hanging off her toe. So this one says, Bella Marble's life isn't what she imagined. Instead of an author, she's a receptionist at a small press. Instead of a happily married woman, she's single, and her lovey-dovey parents are divorcing. And to top it off, her best friend of 29 years, Ellie Matthews, is moving out and marrying the heinously boring Mark. He's not worthy of her. No one could be. Bella feels rudderless, only slightly soothed by time spent with Ellie's not-hot brother, Marty. Okay, he's good-looking, but he's also the aggravating brother she never had, right? When Marty recommends Bella stop looking for the one and just have fun, Bella finds a new empowered side to herself. But when she posts a fairy tale retelling of a disastrous date one night on a storytelling app, all of a sudden Bella is now at Be Enchanted, and she's gone viral. Now Bella's in a fight with Ellie, her new roommate. Her new roommates are so deeply weird, and the pressure is mounting to find new fairy tales to write about. But she's got to live them first. It says it's a frothy adventure. I don't know what that means. And I have one more. I think this is contemporary. Yes. How do you define historical? This is the early 2000s. So I'm gonna define it as contemporary. This is House of Trelawney, Hannah Rothschild. I've never read anything by Hannah Rothschild. My copy is just a little bit ripped, but that's okay. It's a beautiful book. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love this cover. It says that for more than 800 years, the vast rambling Trelawney Castle in Cornwall, turrets, follies, 4 miles of corridors, and 500,000 acres, was the magnificent calling card of the Earls of Trelawney. By 2008, it is in complete state of ruin due to the dulled ambition and the financial ineptitude of 24 earls, 2 world wars, a Wall Street crash, and inheritance taxes. Yet Kiddo, his wife Jane, their 2 children, Kiddo's ancient parents, and his aunt Tuffy Scott, an entomologist who studies fleas, all managed to live there and keep it going. 4 women dominate the story. Jane, Kiddo's sister, Blaise, estranged from the family, who made a killing in finance in London, their close friend, the wildly beautiful, seductive, and long ago banished Anastasia, and her 19-year-old daughter, Aisha. When Anastasia sends a letter announcing that Aisha will be coming to stay, Jane and Blaise must band together to take charge of their new visitor and save the House of Trelawney. But it's not all going to be mysteries, classics, and contemporaries. There's also some non-fiction in my mix. I read and absolutely loved Jessica Radloff's Big Bang Theory. And in that, it told the history of this television show through a series of individually held interviews, emails, memoirs, letters, phone calls, transcripts. And then it wove them all together into one cohesive narrative, even though all of these things took place individually with different people in different spaces at different times. She just took all of this and wove it together. Lynette Rice does something similar with Grey's Anatomy. Now, I am 2 seasons behind in Grey's Anatomy. I do need to watch that. I think this book predates those 2 seasons, so I don't think I'll be spoiled for anything. I also want to read this kind of massive, it's got fine writing. This kind of massive, but very beautiful. And once again, Better World Books, please make your stickers less adhesive. I would like to read Georgiana. This is the biography by Amanda Foreman of the Duchess of Devonshire. And I don't think I need to explain any more about that. I want to read 100 Saturdays, Stella Levi and the Search for a Lost World. This has the most beautiful pastel illustrations. A woman's reminiscences. She is telling them to this author. It is a nonfiction, that's why it's in this stack. So beautiful. So let's just read a little bit about this. It says, with nearly a century of life behind her, Stella Levi has never spoken in detail about her past. Then she met Michael Frank. He came to her Greenwich Village apartment one Saturday afternoon to ask her a question about the Judaria, the neighborhood and roads where she'd grown up in a Jewish community that had thrived there for half a millennium. Neither of them could know this was the first of 100 Saturdays over the course of 6 years that they would spend in each other's company. During these meetings, Stella traveled back in time to conjure what it felt like to come of age on this luminous, legendary island in the eastern Aegean. which the Italians began governing in an official possession in 1923 and transformed over the next 2 decades until the Germans seized control in September of 1943. The following July, they rounded up all 1,650 residents of the Juderia and sent them first by boat and then by train to Auschwitz, on what was the longest journey, measured by both time and distance, of any of the deportations. 90% of them were murdered upon arrival. Stella was born into the mysterious world of Jewish roads, witnessed its destruction, and lived to tell the tale. Probing and courageous, elegant and sly, she is a modern-day Scheherazade, whose stories reveal what it was like to be formed by an extraordinary place in an extraordinary time, and to construct a life after that place has vanished. I am a huge fan of and lover of the Transcendentalists, the United States philosophy from the East Coast, led by people like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and Bronson Alcott and Henry David Thoreau, all of these people, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and also lesser known Margaret Fuller. So I'm excited to read this very hefty biography of Margaret Fuller. In case you're not familiar with her, I will read the back of this one. It says that Megan Marshall, who's the author, Megan Marshall, recounts the trailblazing life of Margaret Fuller, Thoreau's first editor, Emerson's close friend, daring war correspondent, tragic heroine. After her untimely death in a shipwreck off Fire Island, the sense and passion of her life's work were eclipsed by scandal. Marshall's inspired narrative brings her back to indelible life. Whether detailing her front-page New York Tribune editorials against poor conditions in the city's prisons and mental hospitals, or illuminating her late-in-life hunger for passionate experience, including a secret affair with a young officer in the Roman Guard, Marshall's biography gives the most thorough and compassionate view of an extraordinary woman. No biography of Fuller has made her ideas so alive or her life so moving. And then something a little bit different for me, but I do really enjoy from time to time, kind of like an elevated magazine, and that is Hill House Living, The Art of Creating a Joyful Life by Paula Sutton, simple home styling tips and cottage recipes. So I really do, like, from time to time, just really love to pick up a book like this. And it was inexpensive and absolutely gorgeous. And so I grabbed it. And I will read that at some point this year. It's not going to be all contemporaries and mysteries and nonfictions and classics. I also want to read some historical fiction because that is my absolute favorite genre. Historical fiction is my favorite genre. So I picked up the second book in the Witch Hunt series. I picked up 4 books that all have a similar kind of theme, and that is taking a character or a historical figure and building a story around them. So I've got After Anne by Logan Steiner, a novel of Lucy Maud Montgomery's life. I also got Marilla of Green Gables by Sarah McCoy, and this is a backstory for Marilla. I picked up Caroline, Little House Revisited by Sarah Miller. This is, of course, the story of Little House on the Prairie through the perspective of Ma. And I picked up Marmee, a novel of Little Women, also by Sarah Miller. And this is the story of the mother in Little Women, or it's the story of Little Women through Marmee's perspective. Picked up on the recommendation of one of my Bookstagram friends, I picked up Kate Atkinson's Shrines of Gaiety. This takes place in the 1920s in London. That's pretty much all I know. It's 1926, and in a country still recovering from the Great War, London has become the focus of a delirious new nightlife. In the clubs of Soho, peers of the realm rub shoulders with starlets, foreign dignitaries, with gangsters, and girls sell dances for $1 a time. The notorious queen of this glittering world is Nellie Coker, ruthless but also ambitious to advance her 6 children, including the enigmatic eldest, Niven, whose character has been forged in the crucible of the Somme. But success breeds enemies, and Nellie's empire faces threats both from without and from within. For beneath the dazzle of Soho's gaiety, there is a dark underbelly, a world in which it is all too easy to become lost. With her unique Dickensian flair, Kate Atkinson gives us a window onto a vanished world. Slyly funny, brilliant, observant, and ingeniously plotted, Shrines of Gaiety showcases the myriad tales that have made Atkinson one of the most lauded writers of our time. I picked up Demon Copperhead when I saw it at Book Outlet. This is a very heavy book. I love Barbara Kingsolver. I love Charles Dickens. This was a no-brainer for me. It was going to come into my life. But when I saw that it was at Book Outlet, I jumped. I picked up a copy of, again, Better World Books. Please make it less sticky. Thank you. Okay. Carolyn B. Cooney's Enter Three Witches. I used to ingest Carolyn B. Cooney's books when I was a kid. I would read them on the bus to and from school. And this one is one I never heard of before. It's from 2007. So it's a newer Carolyn B. Cooney book. And it is about the three witches in Macbeth. And so I'm excited about that. I picked up my very first Susan Meisner, The Nature of Small Things. I've never read any Susan Meisner before. She's always been on my list. I knew I was going to get a Susan Meisner for this year to read, finally. I was a little bit at a loss for which one I should get, but then I just picked this one. And it happily happens to be about the San Francisco earthquake that I just read a big part of a nonfiction book about by Rebecca Solnit. She goes into great detail about how people responded socially after that tragedy. And this happens to take place in that tragedy. So that's a happy accident. I'm really excited. I mean, I was excited before to finally read a Susan Meisner, but I'm really excited to read this one because it is set in that time. It says Sophie Whalen is a young Irish immigrant so desperate to get out of a New York tenement that she answers a mail order bride ad and agrees to marry a man she knows nothing about. San Francisco widower Martin Hawking proves to be as aloof as he is mesmerizingly handsome. Sophie quickly develops a deep affection for Kat, Martin's silent 5-year-old daughter, but Martin's odd behavior leaves her with the uneasy feeling that something about her newfound situation isn't right. Then one spring evening, a stranger at the door sets in motion a transforming chain of events. Sophie discovers hidden ties to 2 other women. The first, pretty and pregnant, is standing on her doorstep. The second is hundreds of miles away in the American Southwest, grieving the loss of everything she once loved. The fates of these 3 women intertwine on the eve of the devastating earthquake, thrusting them into a perilous journey that will test their resilience and resolve and ultimately their belief that love can overcome fear. I love Karen Millwood Hargrave. I read The Mercies by her, and it just broke my heart. I loved her lyrical writing, and so a story that has fascinated me for most of my life is The Dancing Plague, so why on earth would I not pick this up when I saw it at Book Outlet? Karen Millwood Hargrave, The Dance Tree, is a novel about the Dancing Plague. In case you are not familiar, Strasbourg, 1518, at the height of summer, a lone woman begins to dance in the city square. She dances for days without rest, and when hundreds of other women join her, the city council declares a state of emergency. Musicians will be brought in to play the devil out of the mob. At the city's boundary, pregnant Lisbeth lives with her husband and mother-in-law, tending the bees that are the family's livelihood. Her quiet life is upended by the return of her sister-in-law, Neth, from 7 years in the mountains, where she has been paying penance for a crime no one will name. As the city buckles under the beat of 1,000 feet, Lisbeth becomes caught in a dangerous web of deceit and clandestine passion. Set in an era of superstition, hysteria, and extraordinary change, and inspired by true events, The Dance Tree is an impassioned story of family secrets, forbidden love, and women pushed to the edge. I read a George MacDonald that has been on my shelf for a long time during Booktober this year, so I picked up 2 more George MacDonalds that looked appealing to me, and I would like to read them. I really enjoyed that George MacDonald, so I got The Gentlewoman's Choice. It says, perhaps more than any other MacDonald novel, this story manifests one of the strongest driving forces in his spiritual vision, the theme of godly service to the poor. The narrative centers around Hester Raymond, a 23-year-old Londoner whose loving heart continually reaches out Her benevolence is not without its price, however, growing up in an environment of strict social mores where faith in God was often more cultural than spiritual, Hester's choices concern obedience to the gospel, or conforming to the culture of her day. And I also picked up The Peasant Girl's Dream. And this one, the synopsis is incredibly short. It says, a story of love between friends, love between parent and child, love between brother and sister, love between man and woman, and love between a simple boy and his God. A quiet story to be savored as its influences, relationships, and perspectives soak gently into your spirit. I also really enjoyed a couple of Christian historical romances that I read this year. So I picked up another one that's been on my radar for a while, I would say several years, that I haven't really picked up. And I figured maybe I'm just in that vibe again, that Christian romance vibe. And so I picked it up, and that is A Dance in Donegal by Jennifer Dibble? Not sure how to say her name. I've never read anything by her before, but I've been interested in this book for a while. All her life, Boston-born Moira Doherty has relished her mother's descriptions of the Emerald Isle. When her mother dies unexpectedly in the summer of 1920, Moira is compelled to fulfill her dying wish that she become the teacher in Ballymain, the beloved village in Donegal, Ireland she's heard so much about. After an arduous voyage, Moira begins a challenging new job in an unfamiliar and ancient country. Though a few locals offer a warm welcome, others are distanced by superstition and suspicion. So it keeps going from there, but it's like a Christie sort of story, and I read Christie, or reread it this year, and really, really loved it. So it was inevitable that I finally picked this up. I picked up the next two books in Philippa Gregory's Wide Acre series. These will complete the series for me. I read Wide Acre. Such a terrible and wonderful book all at the same time. So, like, if you loved Forever Amber or Gone with the Wind, the stories, don't get all politically motivated here, but if you loved either of those stories, then you would love Wide Acre. It's got one of those characters that you feel sympathy for, but at the same time, you detest her so much. She is worse than Amber and Scarlet put together. Believe me, she is. She gets into a lot of trouble. The next book in the series is The Favored Child. It picks up with, I think, like a land dispute between the first book's main character, Beatrice's two children. And then the next one, I haven't looked into it at all because I don't want the second book spoiled for me, but the last book in the series is Meriden. So I am looking forward to reading both of those this year. I picked up a series. I picked up a duology. It's a YA duology that I've never read before, but people are just saying how much they adore this, and I think I'm going to adore it as well. I've never read anything by Dana Schwartz, but I now own and will read both Anatomy and Immortality. I love these covers. You've got the girl in the dress, but it looks like a heart. And you've got the girl in the dress, but it looks like a brain. And let's go ahead and read the synopsis. I think everyone in the world knows about these, but I'm still going to read the synopsis. So it's a gothic tale full of mystery and romance. Hazel Sinnott is a lady who wants to be a surgeon more than she wants to marry. Jack Kerr is a resurrection man who's just trying to survive in a city where it's too easy to die. And he, I think, ends up looking for and finding corpses for her so that she can practice surgery and medicine in Edinburgh. And I don't know what happens in the second one, but I don't want to read about it. I know nothing except for this cool cover. Also picked up a fictional, this could have been in my stack with Marmee and Carolyn and all of those. But this is Girl in a Blue Dress. This is a fictionalized account by Gaynor Arnold a novel inspired by the life and marriage of Charles Dickens. So I think this is very much about Charles Dickens's wife, Catherine. But it says an intimate look at the woman behind one of literature's most esteemed men and a fascinating rumination on marriage that resonates across centuries. At the end of her life, Catherine, the cast-off wife of Charles Dickens, gave the letters she had received from her husband to her daughter Kate, asking her to donate them to the British Museum, so the world may know that he loved me once. The incredible vulnerability and heartache evident beneath the surface of this remark inspired Gaynor Arnold to write Girl in a Blue Dress, a dazzling debut novel inspired by the life of this tragic yet devoted woman. Karen Joy Fowler's Sarah Canary. Set in the Old West, this is the strange, magical tale of Sarah Canary and the raging band of misfits and lovers she trails in her wake. When black-cloaked Sarah Canary wanders into a railway camp in the Washington Territories in 1873, Chin Ah-kin is ordered by his uncle to escort the ugliest woman he could imagine away, far away. But Chin soon becomes her follower, and they embark on a series of adventures and misadventures that are hilarious, deeply moving, and downright terrifying. I also picked up an MC Beaton. This was on Better World Books. Stickers, Better World Books stickers. But it's so cute. It's such a cute little book. And I'm looking forward to reading it. This is Emily Goes to Exeter by MC Beaton. It's part of the Traveling Matchmaker series, and it's not the first in the series. I also ordered 2 other ones, but they, like the first 2, this I think is the 3rd, but they were sold before I could get them. So sometimes that happens with Better World Books. Sometimes you put in your order and they're like, oops, sorry, those were already sold. I picked up Two Wars and a Wedding by Laura Willig. It says September 1896. An aspiring archaeologist, Smith College graduate Betsy Hayes travels to Athens, desperate to break into the very male-dominated field of excavation. Amid the heat and dust of Greece, she finds an unlikely ally in Charles, Baron de Robecourt, one of the few men who takes her academic passions seriously. But when a simmering conflict between Greece and Turkey erupts into open warfare, Betsy throws herself into the struggle as a nurse, not knowing that the decision will change her life forever and cause a deep and painful rift with her oldest friend, Ava. June 1898. Betsy has sworn off war nursing, but when she gets the word that Ava is headed to Cuba with Clara Barton and the Red Cross to patch up the wounded in the Spanish-American War, Betsy is determined to stop Ava the only way she knows how, by joining in her place. Battling heat, disease, and her own demons, Betsy follows Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders straight to the heart of the fighting, where she is forced to confront her greatest fear to save both old friends and new. Set during an electrifying era of nation-building, idealism, and upheaval, Two Wars and a Wedding is the tale of 2 remarkable women striving to make their place in a man's world, an unforgettable saga of friendship, love, and fighting for what is right. It just sounded right up my alley. And I've been looking at books by this author for some time and just never felt like that's the story I want to start with. And this one felt like it. I have one more stack of books because it's not all historical fiction, super old classics, mysteries, nonfiction, and lighthearted contemporary romances that I want to read this year. I also have just some good old-fashioned pretty like par for the course for Jenna books. So I'll start with a series. This summer I watched Elizabeth Jane Howard's Cazalet series, the Cazalet family, and the series only got 1 season and doesn't finish telling the story. It does end at a place where you could consider it over, but I know the story goes on from there. And so I am really excited to get going on these. I had to stop myself from reading them right away when they arrived, but I haven't, and I'm going to read them. It's a series, 5 books, and I'm going to read them all this year. So I got them from Better World Books, and so they don't match, and that's okay with me, and I can't get, without totally ruining it, I can't get the library sticker off of this one, but I don't care. I picked up a duology that I haven't owned in many a year, that I read when I was a teen, that I really loved, and I haven't reread it since, and that is, I read it multiple times when I was a teen, and that is the Pat duology from Lucy Maud Montgomery. So this is how I read all of my Lucy Maud Montgomerys originally, with covers. They were like the Bantam Starfire editions. And I have a couple of my originals left, but mostly I've lost all my Bantam Starfire books and have had to replace them with books from this set. But whenever I can find the Starfires, I pick those up. I couldn't find Mistress Pat, the second book, in a Starfire, and that's okay. They look a little different on the spines, but for the most part, it's fine. I've got The Hobbit that I'm looking forward to doing a reread of. The first time I read The Hobbit, I was on a train in West Africa. Last time I've ever read The Hobbit. So I'm excited to reread this book. I didn't know this was a book until this year. I grew up really, really loving the movie, The Song of Bernadette. It's an old black and white movie, and it's about a girl, I think in France, who sees an apparition of, or a coming of Mary, the Virgin Mary. She ends up becoming a nun. She dies, and it's revealed that she had a disease and she was in so much pain. I didn't know it was a book. I didn't know it was a hefty book. But it is. It was a book before it was a movie. Woo! A book by Franz Werfel. And I am really excited to read this. So it says, this classic story, recounting the miraculous apparitions of the Virgin Mary to Saint Bernadette sous Bioures in Lourdes, France, is one of the greatest historical novels of simple and triumphant religious faith published in the 20th century. Franz Werfel, the Jewish author, was a highly respected literary figure in Vienna and an outspoken critic of Hitler when the Nazis occupied Austria in 1938. He escaped to France and found solace and help in the town of Lourdes, where he learned about Bernadette and the 1858 apparitions. When the Nazis invaded France and began deporting Jews to death camps, he was forced to flee again. As he narrowly escaped, he promised God that if he made it safely to America, he would sing the song of Bernadette. He kept his promise, and his novel became an international bestseller and an Academy Award-winning movie. So until this year, I was completely unaware of that. I was completely unaware, and I am so looking forward to reading this book. I picked up a copy of Wind in the Willows. I've never read Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, and I'm so looking forward to reading this particular version. It has such amazing little illustrations all throughout. It is a retired library book. It has seen a lot of love, but it's just gorgeous, and I am super excited to read this book. I also found this absolutely wonderful, if slightly damaged, Edward Gorey illustrated copy of Dracula. This red bit here, so here's where it's slightly damaged. I can just glue that down and it'll look a little bit better. Maybe take a little marker to it right there. And from afar, it will look perfect. I did get it from Better World Books, and it did come to me a little bit damaged, but that's okay. This is Dracula, illustrated by Edward Gorey, and all this red is like a soft, velvety feeling cover, and it's like that on the back as well. And then it's got bats along the spine, and then inside it's got your typical Edward Gorey. It doesn't have a lot of illustrations, but it does have a few on the inside. Like at the top of every chapter, there's a little bat, and there's a little like tiny illustration there. For the most part, it's not illustrated. There are not that I have seen yet, so I don't think there actually are any like full page illustrations beyond something like that. But it's a beautiful copy of Dracula. Just a few more to go, friends, just a few more to go. So I want to read Edith Wharton, and I'm going to start with just one this year. I have read a lot of Edith Wharton, but I've never read this one. This is the custom of the country, and I don't think I need to talk about it because if you want to read Edith Wharton, I think you know. I've never read this, but I love the TV show, and I'm really excited to finally read this. I grabbed Flora Thompson's Lark Rise to Candleford, so there are several books in that series. They're all included here. I think there's 2, Lark Rise and Candleford. So they're all included here. That's just the story of a little community, a little town. If you haven't watched the TV series, the BBC series, highly recommend it. I picked up Marjorie Sharp's Britannia Muse, and I don't actually know what it's about, but I got this great old copy with someone's Fresno, California address in it. It's old, it's wonderful, and I'm excited. And then I've got for Victober. I'm gonna save it for Victober, but you'll see me read it. One of my favorite reads for Victober in recent years was Uncle Silas by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. So I grabbed another novel by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. It's hard to find them in print, but I saw this one and grabbed it. Again, from Better World Books. Stickers, please stop. But it's Wilder's Hand, and it just looks so much fun. I love, love, love J. Sheridan Le Fanu. And this is, Dorothy L. Sayers says that he is the master of mystery and horror. She is not wrong. The Wilders and the Brandons share a history of intermarriage, bitter rivalry, villainy, and madness. The wedding of Mark Wilder to his rich and beautiful cousin Dorcas Brandon was to inaugurate a harmonious new era at Brandon Hall. But as the ceremony draws near, Mark disappears without a trace, leaving Dorcas in shock and the assembled family in a state of severe agitation. And when Mark's letters arrive back at the hall, postmarked from Europe, the sinister figure of Captain Stanley Lake emerges from the wings to claim Dorcas as his own. 1864. October, Victober, here we come. And then finally, there is an end to the birthday book haul. There is an end. By the way, all of these books will be read in 2024. Every single one of them. But finally, we've got original letters from India. Original letters from India. These are the letters from 1779 to 1815 of Mrs. Eliza Fay, with an introduction by E.M. Forrester, the author of A Passage to India. This book is from 1925. 1925. I think it's gotten a new cover in that time, but the inside is from 1925. It is just what it says on the tin. It is Mrs. Fay's letters from India. So it's got these beautiful illustrations. This is the author dressed in an Egyptian costume. It was originally printed in 1817 in Calcutta. There's the original front page. Original letters from India containing a narrative of the journey through Egypt and the author's imprisonment at Calicut by Hyder Ali, to which is added an abstract of 3 subsequent voyages to Italy. No, not Italy, to India. So, excited to read these, excited to read all the things, and Lola is going to be very excited when I stop talking to you about birthday book hauls. Anyway, happy birthday to me. I will see you in the next video. For now, let's go read.